Hello, Ezekiel Dasho here, and today I'm going to draw these sunglasses. I'm using an HB lead, and I think these will present a lot of interesting opportunities to study the symmetry and shapes and curves of shininess and light and shadow, things that glasses are always letting us look at. So I'm going to start with this area here, just to kind of jump in. And I'm going to bring this curve down, kind of paying sort of close attention to that angle, and that distance looks to me about two and a half of these equals about that. So from the top here, looking at that curve, and then let's see, with the irrespective of the symmetry here and the angle, bringing that up to up there. These match up, the points match up, and let's drop this side of the frame down. If we're looking at the center point, we've got this area here where we can use to build out from the middle out, if you will. And let's go ahead and rough in the lenses here. Basically with the lenses, I'm looking at the shape of the lens, but I'm also looking at the shape between the edge of the lens and the outside edge of the frame. And I want that shape to be correct. So that's helping me gauge where I'm putting down the edge of the lens as I go. Because the lenses are dark, as the drawing develops, we can make little adjustments. So it's not crucial that it's perfect right now. Just as close as you can to accurate is great. And just do the best you can on laying those in, and then as we go, we'll develop the look of them into a more machine-edged, symmetrical, smooth kind of thing. So we've got these areas here, and they lead into the arms of the sunglasses, or what they're called. And then the parts that wrap around the ear. And on the side, it's very similar. Straight line there, and curve here. Almost looks like a golf club or something. These, again, similar to the shades, there definitely is room for adjustment as we go. But for now, we're getting there pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and darken up the darker areas that we see. And some of the darkest spots that I see in this picture are the arms of the sunglasses behind the shades here. There's a double darkening effect going on where the shades are, there's a darkening multiplier happening where the shades are darkening the blue arms of the glasses and making it look even darker. So I'll lay in the first layer of shading. And then do another one on top, just to get them nice and dark. This is definitely one of those situations where, and I have talked about this before, where if I was doing this without video or without taping it or whatever, without recording it, I would probably turn the page, rotate it a little bit so that it would be easier to shade in quickly. But for now, I'm just gonna find angles that work and go with them. So here we go. We're pretty far along already, and next I'm going to look for places on the face that are darker than others, and I'm going to block out a few points of light that I see. So like along the top edge, I see some points of light. Kind of just want to leave those alone for the time being and see if I can keep those shiny. And then on this side of the sunglasses particularly, the white is a little darker than the white on the other side. And then there's this area here on the bridge of the nose where there at the top there's a little bit of shine, but in the middle there's a little bit of shadow to sort of indicate the contour. And then there's sort of a shadow starting right there at an angle. It's a little bit of a hard line actually. So there's some areas of light where you can block out again. Similar to if you were drawing eyes, you kind of just like have a little area that you want to have it retain its whiteness. Those are the spots where the light is just really bouncing right off the plastic of the sunglasses. And so on this corner here, it's a little darker. And then from my angle, I'm able to see the nose of the sunglasses where it rests right there. So I'll add that in and then maybe accentuate this shadow a little bit. Very, very few areas on this surface, the face of the sunglasses, that is actually white, even though it is white plastic. But there are those spots that are just quite reflective and catching just the right angle, so I'll try to leave those untouched for now. I'm seeing along the edges here of mine, from my angle, there are some pretty deep Well, there is a pretty deep shadow line. It's pretty it's pretty skinny and sharp, but it is there. There's also a little bit of one on the top. They're not unbroken though. There are places where they get a little reflection. So they're not like hard lines. They're just areas where, areas where the light is just blocked a little bit. And so now, let's see, basically just doing the same thing that I did on this side on the other. Maybe bringing this lens along a little bit. I've got this this lens pretty well defined to my satisfaction in terms of the edge and the shape and stuff like that. So I can, when I draw the other one, I'm going to work to make that one pretty symmetrical to So with this one, even more than the other one, I'm looking at the whole picture while I'm drawing this. It's a little bit of a skill that you got to develop, but it's kind of like looking at the whole thing while you're looking at it's kind of like checking your rear view mirror while you're driving. You kind of look at both at the same time. And then there are these shadowed areas here where I can start to push in a little more definitely, a more defined way. And then go ahead and shade in some of this face of the sunglasses here. At the top there's a lighter area, so I can kind of just define that by drawing in a little bit of a line, almost, not, shading in a line, I should say, near there. And similar on this side, I can shade in a spot. So now let's quick draw in these shadows. There are some shadows from the arms of the sunglasses here. And I'm drawing sort of under some weird, like almost chandelier style lighting, so it's the light is just coming from weird places. So I'm sorry that it's not a little more pronounced studio lighting. So we've got the shadows getting cast there, and almost got these shadows here. And similar to drawing the simple shapes that I worked on earlier, you already know probably that drawing the shadows is a very key part of this shape looking real and like it's occupying some space. So like if these sunglasses were actually just sitting there on the page, they would cast some shadows. And if they don't, you know, we may not immediately recognize it when we look at it. We may as people who draw, but the average viewer may not immediately recognize what's off about the picture. But something will just not ring completely true if the shadows aren't there. And let's see, they're almost doing this weird odd shape for a shadow to be. It is what it is, and it's interesting. And then it's a little sharper of an angle from that side. And I'm just lightly shading this area in. I'm not, obviously not drawing anything close to a line here, just shading. It's a little bit darker, closer to the edge of the shadow, and then it trails off a little bit. So we're getting closer to complete. The last thing I want to do is shade in the lenses. I'm seeing a little bit of a bright spot here for me, and another bright spot here. And they may be a little bit different on the screen, or if you're using your own glasses at home, you know. But so I blocked out those little spots. Those are going to remain light. I'm just going to go ahead and quick shade in this area. Since the light on my sunglasses is primarily coming from the upper right, mid upper right area, I'm kind of starting from the top of shading, and it's just leaving these little marks at the bottom here where I'm not, perfect at shading or anything, so it's not getting filled in like a computer. But there are these sort of sharp shady edges. I quite like those, especially for sunglasses. I mean, they kind of make it look shiny. They may not be exactly true to life in terms of like photorealistic, but they do kind of make it look like a nice drawing of sunglasses. I could color them in a little bit more, not have them be so pronounced, but there is an area on the edge of the sunglasses which is a little brighter, so I don't want to have that be as dark as the rest. I strived for the realism, and it feels a little unnatural leaving a spot. So, there's this, I'd say this shadow here, pretty important for the look of the shape, and then a couple of these interesting like angular shadows, and this other one here. All pretty important shadows for making it look real. And the realness is just, it feels so good to be able to like represent that. And like learning, for me, learning happens when I'm seeing something I didn't see accurately before, but I see it accurate. Like when you see something for the first time and see it in a more real way. That's sort of what it's all about. Well, I don't want to just leave these here because they look cool. That's kind of cartoony, and if that's what you want to do, that's just cool. That's cool. That's just not what I'm really into right now. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Like this series that I'll be working on for a few more videos will be shiny things that are a little more complex than simple. And give us the opportunity to look at light play, and as well as forms that are a little more unforgiving. Like these sunglasses in some ways are more unforgiving than drawing a human body or a human face or something that where the lines are never straight. That there's a lot of hair, for instance. It doesn't have to be accurate. It just has to look right. The sunglasses kind of have, there's a level of accuracy that they demand. They're similar to the cube or something like that, where if it's not accurate in places, it's just not going to look like a cube. And so go ahead and shade in over these a little more. We're at that point of the drawing where, depending on the look you're going for, you could really take your time, or you could really build and build and build and just keep going. Yeah, I think for the purposes of this video, that will just about do it. I just wanted to sort of get a little bit more into how I approach these things, and it's a sort of a fluid process, but it requires a constant, self-analyzation and checking and adjusting, and I hope it's been useful and helpful to you, and stay cool. Sunglasses. Have a great day. Bye.